Good afternoon, lunchtime, folks. We're back, Cutting Edge Physical Therapy. Jason Rusnak. We're doing our grand opening virtual event today at the new location, 3326 East Main Street. Very excited to be opening up a second location. Now, I will tell everybody our goal was to open up next Monday, but we have a bunch of equipment and things that are coming from Houston, Texas, of all places. So we're kind of stuck at the mercy of some weather right now. And I know those folks are having trouble. If you didn't watch our interview with Nick Patel, who is in Houston, 50% of people don't have power in Houston. So there's a lot of struggle that's going on there. Just a couple of tidbits. If you haven't entered our contest, make sure you go to the Facebook page and get in through our website that's listed there. If you put your information in, you'll be entered to win a bunch of drawings. We covered that on a live video a couple of days ago. I'm going to thank our sponsors, and then we'll bring in our next guest. So sponsors for today: Sunshine Cafe, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, Mattress Firm, Sherwin-Williams, American Rental, Nature's Nook, Bob Evans, O'Charlie's, BW3's, 40 Bowl, Johnson Chiropractic, Studebaker Buick, Lux Lizzie's, Olive Garden, Chili's, Jimmy John's, Texas Roadhouse, Journey Yoga Studios, Therapeutic Solutions, and El Rodeo Restaurant. So lots of different prizes to give away. So we're very excited about that. Our next guest is Dr. Jeff Carter. He is the president at Bethany Seminary. And Jeff and I have known each other for a long time. And he's been a good friend of ours and a good friend of our families. And he has done some really interesting things. So we're going to talk to him about marathoning. We're going to talk about his role here in Richmond. So let's bring him into the live broadcast here. And there you are. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Jason. Good seeing you.
Hey, good. Thanks for coming in and being a part of what we're doing here.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm excited for you and excited for the community in this grand opening.
Thank you so much. So let's get right to it. Tell us a little bit about your background. You are not from Richmond, Indiana. So why don't you give our viewers just a sense of where you're from and your family, and let's go from there.
Yeah, so thanks. I am a transplant. Grew up in Maryland and then spent the majority of my life in Virginia. I was 20 years a pastor in Northern Virginia, just outside of DC. My wife, Kim, and I met in college at Bridgewater College in Virginia as well. And we've got 3 kids, 3 girls. Our oldest is a college senior in Rhode Island. Our middle daughter is a senior at Centerville High School, soccer player and runner. And then our youngest is a freshman in high school, so the 3 girls. So came here 8 years ago to take the position of president at Bethany Seminary, but have lived the majority of my life on the East Coast. So this has been different, an adventure for our family, and one we've enjoyed greatly.
And what I heard recently that Grace is going to continue with the tradition that has been established at your family to go to Bridgewater College, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, she did. She confirmed that she'll be 4th generation on
Wow.
both sides. So both my family and Kim's 4th generation at Bridgewater. And so that news traveled quickly. And already I get notes from friends of ours that are both excited and then wondering if she was going to continue on the legacy of soccer there. And she's going to switch from soccer to running. So still involved in academics and athletics, but she's going to do her own thing, which, all of our kids do.
Oh, that's so exciting. I mean, that is pretty amazing. 4th generation of the same college. Tell me because I'm not from the East Coast. My parents are from the East Coast, but like, what's so special about Bridgewater, right?
Yeah.
That 4 generations go there. Tell us something special about that place.
So one, it's church related. So our denomination is Church of the Brethren. It's a small Protestant denomination. So it's a church related school, which means it really focuses on academics and character. How does the individual develop fully through the college experience? And with our families, there's an awful lot of connection both to church and then a strong connection to higher ed and academics. And for Grace, there's a lot of family in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. She wants to go back to mountains, something that we don't have a lot of mountains in Indiana, and she wants to get back to the mountains and the family. And so that family draw is great for her and for us because it means that she'll have a circle of support while she's at college. My oldest daughter's in Providence, Rhode Island, and she took that on as an adventure. And Grace kind of looked at that and said, "That's great, but I'm going to move back to the Valley and be close to family in a place that I know well." So to each their own, right? Each
Absolutely. And
finds their
both
own path.
places where your girls are at are beautiful in their own sense and have all the exciting things going about them. So the Shenandoah Valley is absolutely beautiful if you haven't been there. So just a driving through that area is fantastic. So you came here 8 years ago, kind of on it, take this big job move. What's your role at Bethany?
Yeah, so I was called to the position of president for the seminary. The seminary's been around since 1905, the majority of that time in Chicago. So we moved here 25 years ago to Richmond, and we sold a multi-acre campus just outside of Chicago. So it was a big transition. I was actually a student at the time, so I was part of one of the first graduating classes from Bethany here in Richmond. So when I was called to be president, they wanted someone with pastoral experience, so someone with experience in the church, someone also that knew higher ed, and then someone that was willing to kind of get out there and raise the profile of the school. So 8 years ago, we were not looking for a move, but when the seminary came calling, Kim, my wife, said, "Let's do something different," and so we picked up and moved to Indiana, which has been great.
You know, I don't know this for truth, but it seems like a pastor's wife has to say, "Let's go for it," a lot. Is that true?
Yeah, Kim, I actually pastored her home church for 18 years, which was great. So we went to church with grandma and a lot of her family. And so it was actually a pretty big and bold move for Kim to say, "Let's leave everything I've known," right? Kim and the girls were all born in the same hospital, different years is my joke, but this is home. And
Yeah.
Kim was the one who said, "Let's go. Let's open for a new adventure." Knowing that not only was moving to Indiana an adventure, but also this position. In a typical non-COVID pandemic time, I spend about 100 days a year on the road, and then do an awful lot of community work, all in an effort to raise money, to raise friends for the school, and to raise the profile. And so that traveling, and a lot of it is speaking and meeting with small groups, is exciting, but it's very different than the pastorate where we were together in Manassas, Virginia.
Awesome. Hey, just as a reminder for folks, if you want to talk to Jeff, leave a comment. We'll be glad to answer any questions. And we're going to talk in just a couple of minutes about running and marathoning, which I know is a huge part of your life and your family's life. So we'll get to that in a second. But if you have questions about running or any type of activities, Jeff is going to be your knowledgeable base about that. If you have questions about Bethany, that's fine too. We'll be able to answer that as well. So just put those in the comments down below, and we'll certainly do that. So you came 8 years ago. You do a lot of traveling for Bethany. Obviously, this year has been totally different. We're not even going to talk about that. But what do you see? What did you see in Richmond 8 years ago that maybe has changed now or is different, better or worse? Doesn't really matter. But let's talk about some things that you see in your observations about where's Richmond heading.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jason. I've been over these last 8 years, and I can look back to also the early '90s when I was here as a student, and to think about some of the changes. Like back then, there was still the promenade, where the middle of Uptown was a brick pedestrian way, and so to think of the changes over these last couple decades, but just in the last 8 years, the focus on quality of place. And this community has a great community feel, and so a lot of the festivals, or just recently the meltdown, those types of activities that draw people together, it seems as if they're growing. There's a lot of enthusiasm around, and the open spaces where they take place. There's been great investment. So Elstro Plaza is a great example of community investment. And so the quality of place initiatives, I think, are raising the profile of the community and enhancing the sense of community.
What's I think I totally agree. How do you see Bethany's role in the community here?
Yeah, and we want to be one. We want an increased profile so people know we're here. Because quite honestly, we moved here 25 years ago, and for many of those years, you could say Bethany, and folks would have no clue who we are because many of our students come from the Church of the Brethren, our affiliation, and they come into the community and then they leave. Although we've had a number of folks come here as students and then stay and serve other entities like Earlham College and others. And so we did a major facelift on our building. We did a renovation inside to open up space. We took down a lot of walls and we built a parking lot. And all three of those initiatives it's basically a welcome mat. Come and use our building. We have a parking lot right next to our building so that it's convenient. And the front of the building now clearly says Bethany Theological Seminary. We're on the campus of Earlham, but we're also an independent entity. And we're facing 40 and the Richmond community. Our main entrance used to be on the other side of the building in a courtyard that faces the college. And we reoriented that entrance to say, we're here to serve, and we want folks to come in and be a part of us. Now, it may be that folks want to take advantage of our academic program, and we've got a lot of certificates. We have two master's degrees, an MA, and then we have a separate MDiv, a Master of Divinity. We have an online format. We just built a building in Africa, and we have students from Africa that are studying, much like you and I are seeing each other right now, via Zoom, though, and studying together. So we have all this creative program. So we're hoping folks take advantage of the academic program, but then also just to use the space and be a good community partner.
So what are some of the things that myself as a community member might be able to utilize at Bethany?
Yeah, one, to use our space. So let's say you have a small gathering, or you work with a nonprofit, or you have a board meeting and you want to use our space. We have classrooms to be used. We have an open gathering area. We have a small area where you can prepare food, not a full kitchen, but we have a seating area where we can set out tables and chairs. So we've hosted luncheons for as many as 40 to 50 people.
Oh, it's
And
pretty big.
services can come in. We have a beautiful chapel that the Richmond Symphony Orchestra uses for a number of small performances, and this is pre-pandemic, but we were hosting community concerts, and they were free, and so we can do that in our chapel. And then upstairs we have these Zoom rooms, and these Zoom rooms are incredible. So you can be in the classroom, and there's cameras and large screen TVs, and you can basically connect with anyone in the world that has an internet connection. So our classrooms use these Zoom rooms, we call them, and we'll have as many as 3 to 4 different time zones in any one class. And if it's done correctly, then we can bring in our students from Africa. They're 5 hours separate. But those Zoom rooms could also be used if there was a community need to reach out to folks around the country or even around the world. So there's a lot of opportunity, and we've only tapped a little bit of it as far as community involvement.
That's really all. I mean, I didn't know any of that, which is pretty awesome. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty connected, but like when you don't know what a service could be, that's awesome. And we just had a comment that said, nice. If people don't know what's going on, they don't know what's going on. So if they wanted to get use of a facility, or how do they get in contact with you all? What's the best way to touch base with you? Say, hey, I'd really like to be able to utilize a room or a space for a meeting or something. How do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, probably the easiest way is to simply email me at president. It's president@bethanyseminary.edu. So pretty
And that's
simple.
on your website too, is it not?
It's on our website. And so that would be the easiest way for the direct connection. If you want to know about the program and what we're up to and kind of the vision for Bethany, you can go to our website, www.bethanyseminary.edu. So bethanyseminary.edu. And there's an interactive website that talks about our program. It has, staff and faculty. If you want to know our specialties, it's all on the website.
Awesome. That's awesome information. So, and obviously you've grown. Is that true?
We have. We're growing. We took houses. It's a neat project. Is we realized that most students, so the average student debt coming out of college is $36,000 more or less, and for pastors or nonprofit workers or those that are seeking to move into that service area, if they added a single penny of graduate debt to the 36,000, they would actually be outpacing the market, and they'd have a hard time paying that debt off. So we realized we needed to work at a debt-free education, so a low debt, no debt promise. So we started getting houses and renovating them with volunteer labor, and we're passing on the those houses to our students. So we have students that are part of our residency scholarship. So they agree to come and live in Richmond. So that's a big piece. We're leveraging the local area to the benefit of our students. They come here and they live here, and we give them housing. They work for the seminary 12 hours a week. We give them a living stipend. We pay for their books. We'll give them a full tuition scholarship, and they volunteer in the community 2 hours a week. So it's the spirit of mutuality. Well, that program, we now have 18 students living in the Bethany neighborhood. We want to grow it to more than 20. That program's growing. We've got great growth in our program in Africa. And because of Zoom rooms and people embracing online education where we can see each other and be in relationship, that's growing as well. So we're in a period of great growth, and we're seeing students that are graduating now from seminary. Just from last semester to this semester, students borrowed $20,000 less overall just between the two semesters. So we're cutting at student indebtedness, which means people can go and really follow their passion wherever they want to serve. Doors are beginning to open because they're not encumbered by debt, student debt. So it's incredibly positive, Jason.
That's awesome. And that's where your role comes in, though, right? Because you have to raise money.
Yep. So there's kind of two pieces, raise money and think strategically. What are the opportunities that are out there so that we can take advantage of those opportunities for the betterment of our students? And so if you got a clear vision, and you know this as a business owner, right? If you have a clear vision and you can communicate that vision, so you start talking about low debt, no debt, so that students can serve wherever God calls or at their passion. Donors want to invest there, and so I spend a lot of my time raising money for the school. But I would say it's more about sharing our passion and vision, and then inviting people to join us in that work. And to me, that's what fundraising is.
Awesome. You and I are both men of faith, and we've connected a lot at church because you come in and out from time to time at our church, which is awesome. And you've spoken at our church, but I've missed it every time. It's kind of interesting how that's happened. And you've gotten some local opportunities to preach here as well. But I want to transition that to what's going on in Africa and how obviously that's a huge component of what you guys are doing. And I know you have been really a world traveler. So let's talk about where in Africa that is, because I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, and just a year ago, in January, it was one of my last trips, and so right before the pandemic hit, we knew it was coming and coming quickly. I was in Africa and then Australia and Pennsylvania, all within a really short period of time. You could see how traveling was changing. But while I was in Africa, I took two staff members with me, and we were in Nigeria. And we're up in the north, it's in Jos, which is towards the northeast. It is kind of the southernmost part of where a lot of EYN, Ecclesia N-U-R Nigeria, which is the first Church of the Brethren folks that were missionaries. There's the church that was started, and that is a persecuted church. So if you go from where we are in Jos, which is in the kind of the middle north section up into the northeast, most folks would know that community by the girls, the Chibok girls. So it was a story a number of years ago. There was a collection of school children, Chibok girls, in the northeast that were taken by Boko Haram. It's a terrorist organization. those were our girls. Those are Church of the Brethren, church-related girls, and it started a national movement to free the girls. So our church in that area is deeply persecuted, where their church buildings are burned, their members are killed, and that's kind of regular life. And for being a peace church, which we're a church focused on peace and peacemaking, individuals of that denomination in Africa are really looking for ways in which they might be a peaceful presence in the middle of such violence and chaos. And so when we started into this initiative, we knew there was interest, but the interest is just continuing to grow. And the witness of the church in northern Nigeria is just absolutely incredible. The deep and abiding faith, the commitment to service, and the commitment to peace is just, it's absolutely awe-inspiring. So we were there for a week last year, meeting with students. The program is growing. Worshipped. I got to preach to a very large congregation and just kind of experience Africa. It was my second time to Nigeria.
I have a feeling that people traveled a long way to hear you preach.
People travel a long way, and it's a lot of dusty roads, and yet the commitment, and I think that's the piece that's all inspiring when you're in places like Africa, is just the commitment to those higher values, to the Christian faith, and the willingness just to basically do anything in the pursuit of that faith is all inspiring.
Yeah, not something that we necessarily see in this country.
No, well, but the neat thing with these Zoom rooms, and we have a technology building that we built there that mirrors the technology that we have in this building, and there's all types of redundancy, so generators and solar power just to keep the thing online, satellites and other things. Those stories are told regularly in the classrooms here in Richmond, Indiana. So our students are there on the screen sharing their experience with students that are studying here, and really anyone who comes into those Zoom rooms. So it's first person, it's firsthand. Our magazine just came out, and we kind of highlighted a number of those stories. And the neat thing is the relationship is being built between these two communities, and it's being done person to person. And that has life-changing impact to students right here in Richmond, Indiana. So it's very cool. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, just an awesome story. Sticking on the traveling front, where is Nigeria? Most people speak English in Nigeria, correct?
So Nigeria, because of its British connection, Nigerians do speak English, although it's more by tribe. And so there's an awful lot of languages spoken. And so we can get around, but it really helps when we have folks with us. And we've got a great guy that is basically our guide when he's there, and he can communicate to just about anybody, which is great.
You got to have those folks, don't you? And I want to stay on the traveling thing. One more couple minutes for on the travel, then I want to move to running and marathoning and that kind of stuff. So, neatest place you've been?
Oh, man, you're asking for the list of neatest places, right?
Well, give me the top three, maybe. That might be a little easier.
Yeah, I mean, I love Europe just because I love to go to Europe. And so, being in Europe is always great, but Ethiopia was just different. If you know me, I'm a bit of a neat freak. And so there, many of the meals, it's eating from a common bowl with your hands and just learning how to eat in that situation and not to offend anyone. And I mean, it's just, the cultural pieces are just interesting, and particularly where we were in Ethiopia, being a big running fan. So many of the heroes of marathoning are from that region, and so just learning about the terrain and in training and altitude and all of that. So Ethiopia would be fantastic. South Africa, a lot of this is in Africa, is fantastic. I was just in Australia, Brisbane, Australia, just absolutely gorgeous. We were there during all the fires of last year, which was fascinating. So those are kind of some faraway places that are exciting. At the Cartagena, Colombia, I ran every morning as the sun was rising in Cartagena, and that was just absolutely gorgeous there on the water. And if we start talking about food, and the seafood there is fantastic. Great seafood in Australia. I love Spätzle in Germany. So yeah, we could spend a lot of time.
Well, there's a whole, I mean, we could uncover and do a whole thing just on that kind of stuff. So perfect transition to talk about, obviously Ethiopian runners are huge in marathoning. I know that's a passion of yours. And by the way, you are a vegetarian, right?
I'm pescatarian, so I do eat a bit of fish. Yeah.
Okay. So that's why you love the seafood. So that's great. But let's transition. You went to a place where really the mecca of marathoning it kind of comes from, and how great those runners have been. And you've been doing this practically your whole life. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you did this past year, and how fun that was, and how unique and challenging. You had some challenges on what you did. So why don't you explain to the viewers what you've done?
Yeah, so I first ran Boston when I turned 30. I was inspired by a friend. And so I turned 50 this past year, and it was a goal to run Boston at 50. Obviously, we know our bodies change and slow down, and there's greater challenges. And the Boston times, to me, do not drop as dramatically as we age. And so it was a stiff challenge. So I started the qualifying process, qualified for Boston at the Flying Pig pre-pandemic. And then we got into the pandemic. Was hoping to run Boston on the day after my 50th birthday. So my first full day of 50, I was going to be running the streets of Boston and just enjoying what is, one of the greatest marathons in the world. And then the pandemic hit, and they postponed and said we would have the marathon in October. So I continued to train and stay with it. And then they decided to cancel and go virtual. And that, it was really disappointing, because here it wasn't just running a marathon, but it was doing it on my 50th, and a lot of family involvement. People were going to fly into Boston. But the Boston Marathon folks, the BAA, just fantastic organization. They went to an online format. I was going to let it pass, but then I thought, we just got to do it. So basically they said you could pick your course. You would have to time it and to make sure it was 26.2. But basically, you run your race and you submit everything, and you get your finisher's medal and such. So I started working with a buddy of mine, Brett Guiley, on let's figure out a path. And I wanted to make it as realistic as possible, being that we're in Indiana. It's kind of difficult to be Boston, Massachusetts. But we have a Boston here, which is Boston, Indiana. And I said, what a great finish. But Boston, Indiana, there's no way to get to Boston, Indiana without climbing some hills. So I figured, let me get a heartbreak hill, like the biggest hill I can find, and let me put that where the heartbreak hill is in the Boston Marathon, mile 20. And so sure enough, that's what we did. And so we mapped out this course, and I actually put it on Twitter, and I got response from the BAA and some runners saying, this looks tougher than the Boston Marathon, because once you cross Heartbreak Hill in the Boston, you start downhill into Boston, and there's huge crowds, and you go past the stadium. I mean, it's nothing but energy. For me, it's climbing the hill and then continuing to climb through cornfields and soybeans in September, and there's just nothing. And so they were like, this looks pretty tough, but folks joined in, and Jason, your family was a part of this. My wife organized my Boston run so that she had folks with water, aid stations every 2 miles, ran around Richmond in an expected loop, and then headed out to Boston, Indiana. Ended up with runners that just popped up and joined me along the way. One runner was just running, and he said, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, well, I'm running to Boston, Indiana, doing my Boston Marathon here in September. And he goes, well, I'll run with you. So we ended up with this collection of runners, and people would jump in and out and run with me. And so I basically, except for the first couple miles, had folks with me. Kim ended up with a rolling aid station. So folks were joining her, and it got bigger and bigger, and different people signed up. And so by the time we got out to the cornfields and soybean fields towards Boston, Indiana, there was this huge crowd that kept on leapfrogging me to the finish. And then as I turned onto the road going into Boston, Indiana, there was a police cruiser sitting there, which was a complete shock, and they flipped on their lights and pulled in behind me. And here I had a police escort going all the way into Boston, Indiana, and finished there at the main intersection. It was, Jason, nothing can top Boston in Boston, Massachusetts. But outside of that experience, this was unreal. It was inspiring. All these folks joined in, and I would say it was a great way to celebrate 6 months later my 50th birthday.
That's awesome. It is awe-inspiring. It just gives me tingles. I just remember when Jody and Jolie went out, they were like, we're going. Like, I had someplace else I had to be, so they went out, and it was just neat to be a part of something bigger. I think we all look for things like that, just to say, oh, it was neat to be there to cheer them on. But there was also other parts of this. You did some other things too, didn't you? You ran some other races with that. Didn't you do a 10K and a 5K that also had to be involved in that thing as well?
So many of these races have moved to virtual format, and so Boston did the same thing. I would have never been able to run the Boston series because just lived too far away. But they put the Boston series online, so you had to run 3 races by the end of the year: a 5K, a 10K, and a half marathon. And so I decided I'm going to be all in and do them. And so did the 5K and the 10K, and then my daughter Grace joined me for the half marathon. She had never run that far, but she and her friend Emily Tedder joined me, and we ran 13.1 miles, and it was fantastic. And so there's the competitive piece where I want to run hard, I want to run fast, I want to run long. But for me, in this experience, Jason, the running partners, it's overwhelming. I ran a half marathon with my kid, with Grace. She and I did the 5K together on some farm in Maryland because we had to get it in. I had all these folks join me in the Boston Marathon. So I have a collection of 4 medals. They're hanging in my office. When I look at those medals, I obviously think about the accomplishment, but more so all the stories of the folks that joined in on the race. And if I talk about running for so many folks, it is about personal endurance and achievement. But the running community is so tight, it's often about those with whom you're running and completing the race. We know there's plenty of scripture around that too, about running the race. And to me, that's a critical piece, just having folks with whom you can join together and complete some cool stuff.
Yeah, most people don't know that I've run 2 half marathons. Now, I use the term run very, very loosely, but I think more of it is the completion of the project. You take the 6-8 months worth of training and you put it in, you say, you know what, I did it. Nobody can take away anything from that. I might not have, I just always say that I was at the 50% level. So I was always at the 50th percentile, which I was pretty happy about. And that was great. But this is a perfect transition to community. And I think there's a huge running community here. And can you tell us a little bit about how maybe someone who might want to get involved or say, hey, I'd really like to do a 5K or do a 10K or something like that. Are there community running groups that maybe you know about that people can connect with?
Yeah, and it goes back to kind of this unique community. So when I started here, one of the guys I worked with, Brian Schleeper, great guy, he said, there's a running community. I was a runner. We talked about it, and he said there's a great running community. And so folks get together and run on Saturdays, and it's a pretty expansive community, different areas throughout the Richmond area, and they're all expected runs. So one of my favorite runs is the Beeler Road run through all the hills. And so the Wednesday group is one great group, and then down at the Fitness Warehouse, there's a connection of runners there through the cafe. And so I know folks like to gather at the cafe and talk about running. And I can't remember which day, Jason, but there is a certain day where they kind of have runners lunch. It may be Wednesday. And so the running community here is great. And then obviously the Wayne County Challenge. So you can Google Wayne County Challenge and see the collection of races. I believe this year it was mainly virtual, but next year you can run one race, you can run all the races. You know all the faces, very familiar, which is fantastic. And if you're a bit a little competitive and a little type A, then you can try to hit all of the races, and there's some prizes for the end of the season. So Richmond has a very rich and well-organized running community.
Yeah, it's awesome. Jody and I have been a part of some of those races. I love the turkey trot at the end of almost close to the end of the year. I haven't done the frostbite stuff. That's been a little bit too cold, but those are just such a great opportunity for people. And from my standpoint, it's a fitness thing. For me, it's a fitness thing for what I do for a living. Obviously, there are people who are much more involved, like you and Brett, as you mentioned. But what a great story, Jeff. I could talk to you all day. I love our friendship. I love talking with you, and I am grateful that you've joined us today. Is there anything you'd like to leave for our viewers today? That scripture that you live by that might be something to maybe end our broadcast today.
Yeah, well, for me, and I wear it actually on my my watch, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's my mantra when running, is that I really can do all things. But it's not just it's just not my effort. It's through Christ who gives me strength and leads me. And I will say, Jason, I have appreciated our friendship, but it has been both a friendship and professional. You were the one to work on this old body and get me to Cincinnati, because I came to you wanting to run the Flying Pig, and I wanted to qualify for Boston. That was the goal the whole way. And but I was having some real issues, and you worked on this old body, you got it running, and sure enough, I was able to succeed at my goal because of the professional relationship. So I just want to thank you for your know-how, your commitment. Your commitment was not just to fix me, but it was to get me across the finish line. And for that, I'm grateful. And of course, I'm grateful for our friendship and the friendship between our families.
Yeah, I'm honored to have helped you with that and just play a little bit of a part of getting you back to where you needed to be. So and our families have grown close together, so we're appreciative of that as well. Dr. Jeff Carter, it's been great to talk with you. I hope to see you soon, and maybe out at the next race.
You got it. We'll see you.
All
We'll
right,
be
thanks a
racing.
lot, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now. So again, great interview. If you missed this one, boy, I'll tell you what, Jeff Carter is awe-inspiring. He does a lot of really great things. And again, remember, check us out, share this video with people so we can get you online and get you scheduled for our giveaways. By the way, we don't need a referral if you need to come see us, whether or not it's a running problem or it's something else. Just give us a right up here, Cutting Edge PT. You can fill in some contact information if you want to get an appointment with us. Hope you're having a great day. We'll see you in a little bit for our next one at 1 o'clock.